It's really hard to believe, like back in week 1 and week 2, week 15 and 16 seem like 100 years away, but here we are. So what are we going to do about that? We have covered so many big topics, and we've taken on new technologies, and we've talked about and thought about ideas in ways we may not have considered before. For example, we started off with this huge Wikipedia project that touched on all kinds of outcomes, all kinds of ethical issues, and let us actually do something practical about it. We actually had quite an amazing run with that, and I'm going to share a little more about that in a minute. Now, we also talked about artificial intelligence in a couple of different ways. We talked about biotechnology, virtual reality, artificial augmented reality. We looked at professional ethics. Like, these are all really big topics. And wrapped up inside all of those topics are issues like privacy, security, intellectual property, social media, just all kind of creativity, all kinds of different things are wrapped around all these topics that we looked at. The main idea, my main idea, was an emphasis on looking at things with a new perspective. Like, I don't know about you, but I use Wikipedia almost every day. Like, I use it a lot. I found it to be a wonderful resource over the years, but I had never seen the behind the scenes look at it. Like, I had no idea really how that all worked. Yeah, sure, anybody can contribute. But I think we've all learned not anybody can contribute and have it stay there. And we've actually learned with one of our projects what happens when somebody doesn't think what you contribute should be there. So we're working through that process. So it's been a really interesting semester where I've asked you to reflect and look at perspectives, which is kind of fuzzy. It's not like a bubble in multiple choice quiz, right? The only way I know what you got out of it is by what you tell me. So I have this quote behind me that I love, and you might actually recognize where it's from, or you might not. I don't know, but it's this quote that says he was constantly reminded of how startlingly different. I have a hard time with that word. A place the world was when viewed from a point only 3 feet to the left. How different things look when viewed from a point only 3 feet to the left. And if you think about it, if you're looking at something, let's say you're looking at, I don't know, a tree, and you're looking at it from one angle, and then you sidestep 3 steps or 3 feet over, and then you start to notice some different things because you're seeing it from a different angle. And maybe you go 3 feet to the other side. It's the same thing. That's what we've been trying to do all semester. I've been trying to get you to look at things from just a slightly different viewpoint because that makes you think bigger thoughts. And that puts things into some perspectives you might not have considered. So let me do a screen share. And if I can find it here. Oh my goodness, where did it go? There it is. Okay, let me do a screen share. Now let me make sure I got the right screen because I have a lot of screens open. Here we go. Okay, so you should be seeing Moodle right now. Here's what we're going to look at this week. I'm going to do a quick overview here and then dig in a little deeper into a couple of areas. So for our final assignments, you've already had most of this since last week. So this will just go into some detail. So what are we doing this week? Video you're watching right now. But there are 2 videos in the Think Learn section. I put them together. The first one is this: why should we care about technology ethics? And yeah, I know. We've had a few things that are sort of titled in a similar manner, but each one brings a little perspective that's different, that steps 3 feet to the left, okay? So this one's about 46 minutes long, and I apologize that I can't find it in just a regular YouTube video so that I can embed it directly. So there's a link. So this picture, you can click on this picture all day long. It's not going to go anywhere. Okay, you got to click the link to the article and video, or you can go to the audio only file or the text transcript to read along with the audio file. She's not the most dynamic speaker, but she has some really interesting things to say. And if it was me, like I tell you this all the time, I would listen to it at 1.5 speed while I'm doing some other stuff, but paying attention to some interesting ideas, things that catch my attention. Because she's going to talk on ethical issues specifically related to the recently updated ACM's Code of Ethics, which you may have looked at last week. That might have been one of the ones you looked at when we did professional ethics, or the week before, I mean. And she's talking to technology professionals about what they can do to deal with ethical issues. So you might find this interesting, especially if you're going in the tech field. This next one's only 4 minutes long, a little over 4 minutes long. I love this video. It makes me laugh every time, but you might recognize it. So if you recognize it, good for you. My question to you is, watch this video and ask yourself, why is she making us watch this video? What does this have to do with computer ethics and what I did all semester? Seriously. It has a lot to do with it. It's actually the point of the whole class. It's the whole class wrapped up in 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So as you watch it, ask yourself, like, okay, how? What does that mean? All right. And then down here in the do part, I've got a link to a game called AI Dungeon, which I'll demonstrate in just a few minutes when we get to the part on the final. And then the final part is you'll see the questions that I gave you last week that I put out in Discord for you, but here they are again. And the submission form for the final questions won't be open until Wednesday. And that's on purpose. I want you to actually prepare ahead of time. And if you remember, I said you could make a video response, but that doesn't mean you can just improv off the top of your head. All right. Two things will happen when you improv off the top of your head. One, you'll probably miss stuff. And two, you'll probably just ramble on about stuff that doesn't really make sense and it won't be very organized. It'll take a really long time. So don't do that. Either way, you should prepare your questions, prepare your responses ahead of time so that you're ready to submit. And I will ask you to submit your Google Doc. I want you to make a note-taking document, just like you've done for other projects. Make a note-taking document for your responses to these questions, and you're going to submit the shared link with that. And please, for heaven's sake, share it properly. Okay, we're still having problems with that at the end of the semester. Put a heading on the page, who you are, what it is, what the date is, the usual stuff, and share it properly. Anyhow, let's go ahead and jump into the questions. So here we are. This is the document, the one I gave you last week. It's got a lot of stuff here. And this whole first part is how to prepare, okay? I'm just gonna bring up a few points, okay? Reflection is such a critical part of the learning process because a lot of times people remember or they study things, they don't ever think about, like, what does that mean? How does it relate? What are the big ideas I want to pay attention to? They just don't. And so this whole final is all about doing that, but you might have noticed that so is everything else we've done. My preparation advice, like, don't wait till the last minute. Or type it up ahead of time, give me a link to that Google Doc. Even if you're gonna make a video, you should at least make a good outline because you're gonna have to submit some stuff. Make sure things are formatted clearly so that it's readable. Like when you type it into the form or you copy it into the form, just take a look and see how it looks. This is going to be a big impact on the final grade. It's worth give or take 200 points, which is roughly give or take 20%. But honestly, this is your chance to really let me know what you got out of this class. And that can be a real tipping point for you. But you also should have supporting evidence. So don't just pull stuff out of someplace and tell me that what your opinion is. Like, I'm interested in your opinion, but I want it to be a supported opinion. Where'd you come up with that from? Okay, let me know. And then there's some information about the note-taking document and about the video response if you're going to make that. So let's jump down to the warm-ups. The warm-up questions, and I'm just going to go through each of these sections fairly quickly. The warm-up sections, some ethical dilemmas. There's 4 choices. One of the choices is usually none of these choices, but it doesn't matter what you pick. You have to tell me why. Why did you pick it? So there's like 10 different questions here. So I'll jump through those. Get down here to gameplay. This is the fun part. So you're going to explore an AI-driven game, hopefully with some ethical scenarios. I'm working on that part. We'll see. We'll see what I come up with there. But what I want to show you is the game. So let me jump over here to AI Dungeon. And when you go here, you can choose to log in or not. The advantage of logging in is it keeps your games that you play, keeps your adventures. So the way you can find that is you click on My Stuff profile if you've logged in, and it will show you what you've got here. So I've got, what's interesting is I played this like over a year ago, and it's still, even though they've completely updated it, it still has all my stuff. So I have to go back and look. Anyhow, let's go into this one. So you hit play when you come here the first time, and just do quick start. Quick start's fine. Gives you some options like what kind of environment do you want it to be, adventure or fantasy or sci-fi or whatever. And then you get to pick a character, and then you engage the AI. Now I'm going to jump into one that I did, that I shared with you, is Princess Buttercup, because once you've shared it, you can keep playing. So I'm going to hit continue. This will open it up. And then I can continue if I want to, just by typing things out. But what I'm going to do is show you, because I'm going to ask you to share a link. Did you notice what I did? Once I'm in here, I click the little gear icon. And then it may open up to some other stuff, but click over on details. By the way, this is where you can give it a title and a description, yada, yada. But scroll down to visibility, because this is the important part. So by default, I made mine unlisted. If you publish it, it goes into the repository, anybody can see it. If it's unlisted, just like YouTube, if it's unlisted, only people with the link. And here's your link. So you copy the link, that's what you'll end up submitting to me. Okay, so really quick, gear icon, details, scroll down to visibility, make sure it's unlisted. You can publish if you want, and get the link. Whoops, I just made it private by accident. There we go, unlisted, and then get the link. So I'm going to let you play around and explore with that. There's lots of resources there. Let's close that. Let's jump back over. Whoops, back over to the final. All right, so we're coming down. The big questions. Now, this is the part that's going to cause a lot of you some consternation because I'm going to ask you to tackle a couple of profound ethical questions that came to my mind. And you're going to reflect on things like, we've looked at artificial intelligence. It's in the news every day. Like, you can't get away from it right now. And I don't know that we want to. Actually, the 3.5-hour podcast I listened to today had a lot to do with artificial intelligence and memory and lots of other cool stuff. So I'm going to ask you to reflect on some big topics, like redefining human identity in the age of AI, or the ethical implications of AI in education, or the importance of asking the right question. You know, what does it mean to have, I'm not going to say too much. What does it mean? That's the big question. But for each of these, you're going to be asked to find a resource, a recent resource later than 2022 that talks about this type of question. But mostly I want to know what you think. When you find the resource, don't just link drop, okay? You have to actually indicate that you used the resource in part of your response somehow. All right, a lot of times people like to just slap a link on and say, oh, look, I found one. And there's no indication that they read it or that it informed their opinions at all. So make sure you do that. And here's the 3 questions. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do, the next part, is to look back at Wikipedia. So it's been, what, almost 2 months, getting close, to when we finished up the Wikipedia project, even though we did have a bioconstruction team that took like 3 or 4 biographies and just finished them up, got them over the finish line. They were really close. They just needed a little bit of extra work. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is go back to the biography you worked on and take a look at it. And let me just give you a quick overview in case you didn't see it in the class. Now, at the beginning of the semester, all these numbers were 0. And now look at what we've got here. over 6,000 article views, over 14,000 words added, 776 total edits, 10 articles edited, 9 articles created. You can look at the article link. We've only got one. Now, there's one weird article here, Glenda Mitchell. No idea who she is or how she got here, but I can't get her off. But all the other ones are ones that we created. And there's one missing, and we've got a classmate that is going above and beyond to get him over the finish line because we've learned that there's an editor that just doesn't really like the work, even though it's one of the better biographies, in my opinion. So we're going through the process trying to get that published. But look at all these. These are all published. And so if you go back and you look at your biography, I'm just going to pull up Kat Calvin because she's at the top of the list. I want you to go back, view the history, view the talk page, see if anything new has happened, like what's going on here, and then answer a few questions about that. Because we really did a spectacular job on this, to the point where Wiki Education interviewed several classmates and myself for some articles, and they've asked me to participate in a couple of conferences to talk about what you guys did. And so I think we hit it out of the ballpark, considering it was our first time doing it. Good job, guys. So I'm going to ask you to reflect on that. Now, in general, there's some overall big reflections in the class, okay? So I'm going to ask you in this section, like if someone said, okay, hey, what was that class all about? In a couple of sentences, complete sentences, capitalized, please, this is college. What would you say? What was the class all about? And then as we get near the end of the semester, I'm going to ask you to look back, and this is where your portfolio notes will come in handy if you completed them, okay? Because if you use the template I gave you at the very end, there was a section that said, what are your top 3 and tell me why, okay? So if you've done your portfolio notes, this should be a fairly easy section. I want you to pick your top 3 topics, and for each topic, you're gonna answer some questions, like why did you pick it? What were the main ideas, etc. Okay, that's this section. In the communication section, this is mostly a demographic sort of question. Like we used a couple of communication tools. I'm curious how you use them and what you thought about those. And, if you have any suggestions for how to do that better. Now, coming down to the personal reflection, and we're almost to the end, I promise. This part is, how would you rate the class? How would you rate your level of engagement in the class? This is personal. And how would you rate your level of interest in the class? And then a checking in. We've done this once before. What went well, what didn't go well. And then finally, what advice would you have to other students taking this class in the future? Wow. So that sounds like a lot. And oh my goodness, it is a lot. Back, I don't even remember when, somebody asked me about the final, and I said, it's a comprehensive final. It is a comprehensive final, because I want you to look back at all the things you accomplished this semester and use this final as a way to showcase that to me or to whoever else you want to show it to. I would definitely add your the Google document that you make, the note-taking document for this, add that to your portfolio notes, because this is something significant. This was no joke. If you engaged in this, you did a lot of deep thinking, a lot of collaborating, a lot of teamwork. There's a lot here. And I really appreciate that you stuck with it to the end. It's been a good semester. I've really enjoyed reading everything you guys have written and corresponding and writing back and forth and troubleshooting all the things we did. Okay. But if I could leave you with one thing, it would still be this quote. Okay. Sometimes when you're not sure about something, just step a few feet to the side and see how different it looks. It's been a good semester. Thanks.